Well, cheers to an
Cheers to you, sir.
unsanctioned recording of a podcast.
Mm,
Which, what are we calling
here we are.
this? I don't even remember.
I don't know. I
Just crashed
suggested
the
the last
net.
few kids. Crash the net. There we go. I
Crashed the
like it.
net with two guys that just want to get drunk and talk about hockey. Sorry,
Wow.
Caroline.
Waste of time. So what's in your tumbler? Tell me what's in your tumbler right now.
All right, so I have made a poor man's old fashioned.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what we've got is we've got bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
It's old fashioned premix, which actually isn't all that terrible. So it's what, cherry and orange kind of
Okay.
mixes along with bitters. And you finish it off with 7 Up. And then you basically stir the shit out of it, and it
Oh
is
my.
delicious.
Oh my goodness. So you actually put
Yeah.
carbonation into your old fashioned.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. All
Yep.
right. So we have to agree to disagree here. I'm
It's
I'm a
funny.
bit of a purist. I'm
No.
drinking an old
No.
fashioned myself. I have Basil Hayden because I ran out of my cheap stuff. Um,
Okay.
but it's simple syrup and orange bitters. It's all you need.
Yep, that's true.
It's
I recently went to an industry conference where they made like traditional old fashions, and it was a
yep.
little bit too bourbony. So I
Okay.
actually asked for a 7 Up chaser, and
Uh-huh.
it looked like I had an old fashioned and a glass of vodka and just double
Oh,
fisted.
nice. So
So,
people gave you a wide berth.
uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And you had some stolen valor there because people were like, "Oh, that guy's got more cred." So you like Knob Creek in
A
yours,
big-
yeah?
What's that?
You like Knob
I
Creek?
like, yeah, Knob Creek, Old Forester, any of that kind of stuff. Not a fan of the rye. I don't want anything that's like too oaky.
Sure, that's fair.
It gives me a little bit of heartburn when it gets a
Mhm.
little bit too oaky. So
I've heard
just
all of that before. Yeah.
the older I get, the more refined taste I have, I'd like to think.
More so my go-to bottle of bourbon for pretty much anything um is Four Roses yellow label, which is no longer yellow. It's more of like a taupe, but it used to be yellow. But it is a really, really good bourbon for the price point. It's like $26 a bottle. And you wouldn't think it if you drank it, but if you
Interesting.
the bottle if you have a high turnover rate on your bottles, like I do sometimes, depending upon how hard my work week is,
Mm.
that one you can feel good about getting a couple of because 26 is a great price for a
Yeah, that's kind of what like Knob Creek, Old Forester is. It's all in that same kind of spot. You don't want to get like $5 bourbon and
no.
tasting like gasoline.
Yeah.
So we should
Nor do
probably
you want to
talk
get a
about some stuff,
$50
huh?
bottle of bourbon and mix it with 7 Up. Oh.
Delicious.
Uh,
Do not, sir.
all right.
So why are we doing this? Well, for those that don't know, the one listener that's actually going to watch this and listen to it, we get left alone on Discord quite a bit.
Yeah.
And we talk about a whole bunch of random shit. And we thought, fuck it. Let's piss off a couple of people and make a podcast. So here we go.
Why not? Why not?
So start with the Bruins press conference. Might as well.
Actually, let's start with before the Bruins press conference. Give me your
Uh-oh.
thumbs up, thumbs down on successful season. Right?
Uh, you know what? I think for
What?
me it was successful.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
did you feel when we lost? Like, just walk me through your. I know you were angry. I know you're like. There's all the things you can say. Okay, this is what any Bruins fan is gonna. There's like a checklist of things you go off. But like when you turned away the TV, you walked away, you took a deep breath. Where were you?
It was one of those things where you knew the person or the team was about to die and it finally died. It was almost like a sense of relief because I didn't feel the team was going to win a game 7 in Florida.
No.
And it was kind of one of those things where it's like, you know what? It's over. That's fine.
Mhm.
I didn't think, I didn't think the team was really going to be all that great based off of, who they were going to ice. And it's just one of those things where it's like, all right, it's finally over. We can finally move on with our lives a little bit. So, where were you?
About the same. I think that had we gotten completely smoked the entire series, I would have been tweaked a bit because that isn't how I would want a season that, even though we were a little bit going into it, like expectations were super low, but it was still a meaningful season because it was like a centennial season. And I still remember the like 100th anniversary of Fenway, and it was like, yeah, they had all this stuff planned, and the team was awful. And like I can't even look back on that year and be like, ugh, we had an absolutely stupid coach, and like everything went wrong. They really put a lot of effort into like planning stuff.
Yeah.
I did not feel that way this time. I felt they pushed it as far as they could push it. And I knew that as the further they got into the postseason, the more it was gonna hurt. Like I feel like second round is a good time to go out. You made the first round, awesome. You're not a complete failure. But if you make it to the conference finals, it doesn't matter if you know you're outclassed. Like it still hurts because you're there.
You still want to win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but you're not gonna win.
Yeah.
You're not gonna win. And it's sort of like I always felt, knowing that what our likely path was, it was going to end in a very frustrating manner the further we got in. So I'd rather check out with Florida. I'd rather have been like, okay, we fought Florida. I feel like the Rangers probably would have embarrassed us. And on some weird fluke that we got past them, which I didn't think we did, but you got to allow for it. I feel like have we faced any of the 4 remaining teams in the West Coast, like, what are we doing at this point? Like, why are we even like, no, just hang it up. Just hang it up.
Right.
It hurt.
I don't know how we did against the West. I don't know how we did against the West Coast teams, but weren't we like 0-3 or something against the Rangers in the regular season?
Yeah, they
like
had
it was
the whole season.
bad. Yeah.
So
we might have.
So if you're going to choose a series to go out with that you felt like you were maybe in it for a while, I feel like Florida was the right time to go.
I think so. Yeah. Were you surprised that they played Swayman almost every game? Or do you think that was part of their plan? Right. They always said, this is our plan. We're sticking to the plan. Do you think that was the plan? Because I don't.
I don't think they really had a plan. I honestly felt that I was pro tandem.
Yep.
Going in, was quite vocal about that. And when they moved away from it, I got really annoyed. But you can't argue with results, and Swayman rose to the challenge.
Yeah.
But I felt like the tandem would have kept my plan for the tandem was, if you win a game, you get another. Nobody gets more than 2 starts in a row. That was like my easy. We can take emotion out of this, and you take the whole notion of fans and media and opponents second guessing what your plan is, and just go. This is our system, and we go. I felt like that held the team accountable, knowing that you couldn't necessarily rely on any given goalie to back you up. And if you lost that game, that goalie lost his second start in a row. So that's kind of on you. And I feel like at times when we got further into the postseason, and things started sliding in the opposite direction that we would have preferred, I think mentally the team was like, Swayman's got us though. And I didn't necessarily like that. Now, at the end of the day, he delivered, so I have to be proven wrong and admit that crow tastes a lot like chicken. So I will eat it and smile. But I don't think that I think they were kind of like Swayman. If I had to guess, I think they probably were like, let's lean more towards Swayman with Toronto because he won more, and then maybe lean more towards Ullmark because he kind of owned Florida.
Right.
But by that point, I think they lost the narrative by the time they got to Game 7 of Toronto, and they just couldn't justify moving away from Swayman.
He was just playing way too good.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, wasn't there a game where they pulled Swayman, right? Put Ullmark in, and then the next game they started Swayman, which was kind of weird, right?
Yeah,
like there were some opportune spots where they could have put Ullmark in for a game. Yeah. And the crazy thing is I don't think Swayman got tired. He just got beat on a goal that probably no one else really saves, right?
No,
so
I mean,
just can't do anything about it. It's just
one
of those things. So,
you watch the replay and it's like, oh, he had no idea where that was.
Yeah,
it just sucks that he got beat in the same place on the same side, like in the same way that the last Game 7 was with a minute left. And it's like, maybe it would have been better if it gone in a different part of the net. But
Right.
when you look at it, you're like, oh man, it was blocked entirely. The only thing that irked me about the way the goalie situation went down was just how dirty Ullmark got done. Because coming out of the All-Star break, he totally saved Swayman's ass. He was the superior goalie coming down the stretch. Swayman won the coin toss, and then suddenly he's like the hot kid. And Swayman and Ullmark comes in. The team in front of him plays like shit, and they're like, "Well, Ullmark, sorry." And he's like, "Okay." And then they're like, "Oh, we're getting smoked, Ullmark. Why don't you go in there and like, I know you haven't seen anything in like a week and a half, but why don't you just go let one in, and then we're gonna bench you for the rest." He's just sitting there like, "Come on, man! I won the Vezina last year."
I know, right? He looked like just a sad puppy on that bench, man.
I hate that element. I hate the idea of it. I just want him happy.
Yeah, you just want to hug him. They're just so huggable.
He's so huggable.
So that's all right.
Well, anyway, so that's how I ended the season. I looked at it and was like, I feel like if we pushed it to a game 7, I think Florida. Actually, I thought if we pushed it to game 7, I think we would have gotten into Florida's head enough that they would have started making some mistakes. But that victory was secured only if Florida didn't play to their potential.
True.
Which they can be pushed to not. But the moment that goal went in, I was like, all right, season's over. I'm fine. I'm happy.
Yeah.
When it ended, I was like, wait, how far was this really going to go?
I know. What do you got? Like 100 seconds left in the game or something?
Yeah.
It was, I mean, I think
we can go to overtime where we're historically awesome.
Right? Yeah. Well, at least Allmark wasn't in there, so he can just give it away to Kachuk like he did the year before. So, yeah, we don't talk about that. So, what were your thoughts on that press conference? Was there any like major takeaways that you took from it, or any like surprises that kind of like knocked you out of left field?
No, it was as pressers go, it was a fairly vanilla conference in the information they delivered, but I did like how some of the information came out. I am always reminded at the end of the season that Neely and Sweeney are former players and they played together, and there's an opportunity to look at them and go, yeah, they get it. They were there. They know what it's like on the ice, and they know what it's like to want to win.
Yep.
So I liked how Sweeney handled the media, especially after the first press conference he did a week earlier, where he was kind of like, he kind of got sassy on stupid questions. But I mean, like, what they can't really reveal a whole lot.
Nah.
And the media always asks the wrong stuff. I think because you and I discussed this earlier. I feel like they always come in chasing sound bites, and they want to get somebody saying something that they can distill down to like a nice headline and then run with. But they're not going to give any of that out. I liked that. I liked basically what I'm reminded of at the end of these end of your press conferences are that we finally have a upper management Boston team that actually gives a shit about the success of the team.
Yeah.
This is not the Jeremy Jacobs era anymore. And I think that anybody who's a Bruins fan of a certain age is like wired to just assume that it is. And you need those end of year press conferences to remind you that it isn't, and that they want to win just as bad as everybody else. So I was happy to be reassured of that. And it also gave me further context for how they handled the Florida series overall, but we can put a pin in that. I'm going to throw it back to you. What did you think?
I liked it. I thought it showed that they were actually competent. That's the thing you don't really get to see. Well, I mean, maybe you do, but I don't watch a whole lot of the locker room raws or any of the behind the B stuff. So it kind of reinforced that fact that Sweeney and Cam are kind of competent leaders when it comes to the organization. And you actually feel like they have the team's best interests in mind, and they're going to do what they think is best for the team. And when you talk about like DeBrusk, it sounds like the Bruins were aggressive. They had an offer on the table, and it was DeBrusk or DeBrusk's agent or whoever who kind of didn't want to sign the extension or negotiate back. So it does take two parties to actually get a deal done. So it's that kind of nice thing where the Bruins want to be a Stanley Cup contending team, which I think is what we always want our teams to be. So it's one of those things where it makes you feel a little bit better going into this offseason.
Yeah.
It didn't sound like Allmark really changed his mind on the no trade clause. I think Stan was kind of alluded to that point.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they're gonna try to re-sign Swayman, see what they can do. So and I did like the fact that they wanted to get faster, right? They wanted to win more 50-50 pucks.
Mm-hmm.
And try to find those players that can kind of help with those defensive zone takeaways. So all of that I think will help them moving forward. It'll just be interesting to see who comes in, who comes out, just because there's a lot of stuff that they can do.
There
So
is.
it'll be an exciting off season, I think, of at least if not activity, but rumors, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Twitter's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that.
You know what I also liked is that I don't think enough credit was given to those answers on what they felt the team needed. Because I also remember a era where it was like, well, we need more goal scorers. We need like a high paid superstar to kind of come in that can just outscore the other team. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily what you need. Honestly, Boston needs help. We need secondary scoring, but
Right.
and they said that too, but they didn't stop there. If that makes sense. I liked how they went further than we just need someone to come in and score more goals, because all these games were like 1-goal games. And if we can just get a couple more people that can score, all of our problems are solved. And that is not true. And so I like how they at least acknowledge that, oh yeah, if you watch enough tape on us, you see all the holes in our game. So these are where we need to tighten things up.
Yep. And I don't remember who was it, if it was in the presser or if it was McAvoy, but wasn't he saying he wanted the defense to be more engaged next year?
That
right?
was Lindholm, and in a really interesting. Yeah, Lindholm, shoot more. Right? You want the defense more engaged. Power has always been like you had the power to go home all along, Lindholm. Just shoot.
I know, right?
Click your heels 3 times and shoot.
Yeah. Well, he had that knee injury right after
Yeah.
February that just kind of fucked him up a little bit. But I mean, think about it.
I'm not saying on Lindholm. I am not a Lindholm hater. I think that.
I think Lindholm is fine. I think he's him and Carlo. I'm happy with.
Mm-hmm.
I still think. I don't know if Lohrei is what they need for the regular season to get McAvoy going. I'd like to think he is, but I would still like to get a real, I would have loved Hannafin, right? I still think they need that. They need just someone that can actually rip the puck on the power play. That's why I hated Shattenkirk not playing in the playoffs. I think they need to find that guy in the off season. If it's Brady Shea or somebody else that they can pick up through a draft for Allmark or whoever. But the nice thing is they've got pieces in place where they can be good next year as long as they have a decent offseason, which gives me hope at least. So we're excited for that. I don't know.
Respect to the defense needing one more piece. Let me ask you this. What do you think where do you think Lohrai's threshold is?
You've been drinking too much.
How far? Never. It's been a long day. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Where do you think Lohrai's threshold is? Because I see him as someone that can quarterback PP1, but that might be a hot take, and you might disagree. I like the fact that he's tall, he's got a long stick, which means if he's running to the boards to try to keep a puck in, he can do that because he's got the reach. He's also not afraid to shoot from anywhere, where I noticed McAvoy hesitates way too much.
He does hesitate. Yep.
Now, granted, we found out that it was a shoulder injury that he was nursing. So that probably meant that he has a limited amount of shots per game, and maybe he's aware of that before he's really useless. But that being said, I still feel like he's trying to drive plays that not much comes from. So I would like to see Lohrei go further in that regard.
Yeah.
And if he develops well, do you still feel like we need another piece?
So I do think Lohrei has the ability, based off of what we saw in the playoffs, to be that top 4, maybe top 2, right? Pairing with McAvoy. He's got the puck handling skills,
Yep.
being an ex-forward back in juniors or high school or whatever it was.
Yep.
We know he's got that mentality where he wants to score.
Mhm.
Trying I'm trying to remember and think back where he was good. I think he's better on the power play than McAvoy is. I don't think McAvoy is someone that I would actually want on the power play.
Mhm.
Right now, if I was going to craft it, I'd have Lindholm and Lohrei. That's who I'd
Agreed.
have. I'd probably
Agreed.
have Lindholm 1 and Lohrei 2 just based off experience.
Yep.
I don't want Lohrei and Pasta out there at the same time. That sounds terrible in my opinion, just because I don't know. I don't think Lohrei is as strong defensively as Lindholm is right now, or as responsible in understanding he's the last defense and he needs to come back and
Mhm.
not give up those odd man rushes or draw those penalties. I think Lohrei actually has that ability if he actually keeps improving. He could be that top he could be that guy that plays with McAvoy, right?
I think
But
he's. Let me refine your response a little bit because you talked about Lohrei drawing penalties. So are you talking about 5-on-5 on the power play?
I think on the power play, right? Because
Okay.
I don't think he quite grasps the fact when he should pinch
Mhm.
or if the puck is bouncing at the blue line, what he should actually do with it at that point, and the defenseman is coming at him. I think we
Right.
saw that a lot with people during the regular season or the season in general, is there'd be that puck bouncing and the last person wouldn't know they would just try to use their stick a little bit
Mhm.
more often than not and not use their body, not use their skates to kind of settle that thing down and just get it back deep. And I think that's where kind of Lindholm is a little bit better, where he'll understand, oh shit, this is a bad situation, and maybe not play the puck, play the body, or at least retreat a little bit,
Mhm.
even if fans aren't so happy about it, where Lohrei might want to be a little bit too aggressive. And usually Pasta is that guy high,
Yeah.
I would think. So then he is that quote unquote second defenseman. You've got Lohrei and Pasta back there together, and that's going to create a whole bunch of, that's going to create a world of shit.
It is so interesting to hear you
So
describe this scenario because you could take Lohrei out and put McAvoy in, and that is exactly what we have right now.
I know.
Because when I look at and every time I criticize McAvoy, you show up with a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm not going
No,
hard against McAvoy,
no, no,
but
not someone else. I do a PowerPoint
no,
presentation.
no, no. I remember when I was talking about the odd man rushes being given up, and like I was blaming McAvoy, and you like had pictures with arrows that were like not his fault, not his fault, and then I was quiet for months about it.
We'll do
Um,
that. We'll do that next time.
okay, but I feel like that's whenever I look at McAvoy on the power play, I see him driving deep, and then nothing happens. Um, what I like about Lowry is that he's not afraid to just sort of like drift back and forth on the blue line and just sort of look for something.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to shoot from there. And I know Carlo's got a shot, but he doesn't like to use it, and that's not
Mm,
who he is. So I look for the next guy on the blue line that actually was like, no, I can shoot from here, and that to me is Lowry.
yep.
And I would like to see him develop that more. Over the course of the next offseason and then the course of next season because I think McAvoy is not utilized well in the power play. I just don't think he's that guy.
I don't think he should be utilized on the power play.
No.
Let him be your 5-on-5 and your penalty kill guy.
Yeah,
He's
totally.
not, you don't need
Totally.
him to be a power play guy.
He's
It's
he's awesome at leveling the hits, which is you do that in the PK. You don't need to be
right.
hitting people on the power play.
No.
You know, and I don't have a problem
Right.
with you driving to the net if you're gonna score like Orr, but you don't,
Right.
and you never do. So
No.
maybe like you know,
Once
take
a
the rest.
year, maybe he does that. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I think I like the fact though that Lowry does kind of walk the blue line.
one hundred
That's
percent.
one of those things that is tough for a penalty killer. I
Mhm.
mean, I never played awesome hockey, but as a penalty killer, it was always tough when you had quick puck movement, but you also had the puck kind of move from one spot to the other spot, and then you had to communicate who had who. That
Mhm.
just created a whole bunch of shit. So if you're walking the blue line, you're also giving that goalie, he's got to move. And if you've got traffic in front, you've
Yep.
seen it in other games, it just creates chaos in front of the net. You shoot a wrister and anything can happen.
Exactly.
So it's one of those things where I hope whoever runs the power play is gone next year and we can actually get someone that understands maybe the little nuances of what should
Yes.
and shouldn't happen. And, we'll see. One can dream. I don't think it'll ever happen, but
One
whatever.
of the things I actually enjoyed hearing was when in the postseason, when the commentators started remarking about how Lowry used to be a forward,
Yep.
and whether or not he decides to shoot or not, if you are on the power play and you've got a defenseman walking the blue line, and everybody who is on the defensive team knows that guy used to be a forward, psychologically, I feel like that helps.
Hmm.
The guy that knows how to shoot and isn't afraid to do it. And I think that there's enough people playing Boston on the PK knowing McAvoy is not going to shoot. That's not what he does. So
True.
look for him to pass or look for him to just dribble until we can poke check it away. And
True.
this is not a knock against him, but the thing is that our formula has been dissected for 2 seasons. They know
Yeah.
what we're going to do. So I like the fact that Lowry can act as a bit of a chaos agent. So chaotic that he may no look blind, soft hand, backhand pass to the opposition. You never know when that's going to happen. The sword cuts both ways. But
True.
I feel like if you are trying to set up for what might these people do, is he going to pass to Pasta? He might not, because in the postseason he didn't, and he went
Right.
else, and the guy can score. So if he's got the puck, and I think with McAvoy with the puck, they look to Pasta or they look to somebody else. If you know you can't take your eyes off that guy, that's a problem, whether or not he shoots or not. And so
Right.
I think that he adds a little bit of variety and change to the system where you get that for free just by putting him out there.
It's a good point. I mean, that's probably why Shattenkirk was so deadly out there,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, Shattenkirk
100%.
had the shot,
Yep.
but he also could do that no-look pass over to Pasta, which McAvoy, everybody knows he's either going to pass it across to Pasta or pass it back to Marchand low.
Right.
He's not going to shoot it. So why
are you there?
You're not even going to get in the shooting lane. You're going to get more in the passing lane and take that away from him.
Yeah. And I think by the end, Florida knew that, which is why
I
they
think so.
crowded him. All you need to do is
Yep.
skate directly to at him. At him. And he's going to be like, oh,
what the fuck do I do? Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Crazy. So, all right, what do we got? We got 15 minutes. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about Freddie?
Minutes? What do you got to go somewhere?
Yeah, I got to go get my dogs from daycare.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. Yeah, maybe we should.
Plus, I got storms coming. I got fucking wind and rain, and
oh my goodness,
gonna be scary as shit.
So, what do you want to do? You want to talk about? We talk about the presser. Let's talk about how the Bruins handled themselves, given the reffing situation with Florida and how they ended the series. I have thoughts on this. Do you have thoughts on this?
Probably not as many as you.
I do.
I would say, I mean, that was one of the things that I had coming into the playoffs, be it right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Montgomery was not very good at influencing the refs when it came to getting calls. And I do think that is a strength of the coach. Look at Brindamore, look at Maurice.
Right.
They just seem to be guys that get the calls. Like them or not, that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little bit more respect for Montgomery more towards the end when he was doing those, the flops and all the, the fun kind of machinations and yelling at the refs. I thought he got better, and I would like to see him do that more as, the regular season goes on and the playoffs. Hopefully they make it next year. But I do think, refs are only human. They're going to listen to people yelling at them. They're going to listen to the players.
Are they?
So I think they are. I think they do. But I don't know. What do you think? Because I'm kind of curious what you have to say.
My feeling was it's one thing if you try to work the refs and you win as a result of it. It's another thing if you try to work the refs and you still lose. And there's
So who do you think did who?
I think that I have two. There's two. I have point A and then I have point B. My point A was I think Montgomery was under mandate from management to don't go that way. Don't bitch about the refs.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. And for whatever reason, I feel like that was there. I feel like it was evident in Sweeney's presser non-presser where he came out was
Yeah.
like you're asking people the wrong questions, which when you were hoping that he was going to come out like Bobby Heenan and Maroon was going to be walking around behind him just pacing, doing like just punching his fist and waiting for his turn to go. You hoped for that, but that's scripted and not in the real world. And I think that after that happened, I think they maybe looked at Montgomery and was like, all right, if you want to do a little bit of stuff, you can.
Right.
Just don't go overboard.
You think it was more about? You think it was more behind the scenes type of stuff, right?
Yeah, I kind of do. But
I think that's how the Bruins operate too, more than in front of the cameras and making a bigger stink about it. I think they try to be more respectful, right? And go through the proper channels than try to go through the media.
Right. I also feel like no one's got any sympathy for this team in this town. So the more you whine, the more you're going to be. I mean, I listened to a bunch of hockey podcasts, and for the little that Boston even said anything, there were people that were like, "Oh, Boston's whining," and I'm like, "That, my friend, is not whining. That, my friend, is not whining." Like you get punched in the face, and you go, "Geez, dude, you punched me in the face," and like the rest of the hockey world is like, "Oh my god, look at these whiners." It's like,
right.
Hey, punched in the face. Why even bring it up?
Stating the obvious.
Yeah, exactly. We all know. We all saw it. We all know it. I hadn't really heard. I mean, I live in Brooklyn. I don't hear the term "title town" thrown around a lot, but I was watching the women's hockey championships recently, and they said that, and I was like, I guess. I grew up in a barren wasteland of titles, but in the last 20 years, not so much. But I still don't identify that because those weren't my formative years. I think that when you look at teams like Toronto and Carolina, and I mean, whatever. Florida's a different beast, but even Montreal. Oh my God, Montreal. They try to work the refs because that's part of the gamesmanship thing. But if you win, people are annoyed at you, and if you lose, you're like, oh God, you suck even more. And I feel that Sweeney coming out was an acknowledgement that, yeah, maybe the refs aren't doing our jobs, but let's be honest, neither are we. And everybody needs to be held accountable. And that set a tone for when we ultimately lost, which it was not a foregone conclusion at the time of that presser. Right. But when we did, and we saw the line, and we saw everyone shaking hands, and we saw Marchand go, yeah, he punched me in the face. That's what happens. I didn't like it, but that's what happens. Suddenly you're like, oh man, they took it on the chin. They went out and they tried to play hockey, and they did, and they what was it? Razor said that they dragged the Panthers down to their level, which they did. At the end of the day, it wasn't enough. But no one was screaming, "This isn't fair," and no one can be left with that taste in their mouth after this season. We can kind of know it, but they didn't say it, and that makes them a better team. Because when you look at how Monty holds himself, and you look at where Keefe is out of a job, you go, who do you actually want behind your bench? And it's not Sheldon Keefe being like, oh, you should watch Marchand. No. If anybody watches Marchand, you're going to watch Ty Domi beat the shit out of him before a face-off. Like, so it's I didn't have a problem with them as a team not getting annoyed. And I actually respected the whole organization more as a result. The picture of Marchand shaking Bennett's hand and patting him on the shoulder, it's like, come on, try to take that away from him. You can't. Nobody's whining here.
It's like Marchand said, it was playoff hockey, and Marchand would have probably done the same thing. You hate it.
Maybe 6 or 8 years ago. Not so much now. There was a time where it would have.
Right. When he elbowed, he gave that Johansson, I think, an elbow on the Devils. And, but I mean, it's one of those things that we don't want to talk about that. That's fine. But
I
you want
I
to?
I
So
want to address the annoyance at why aren't people screaming about the refs, and I actually respected the team more for not.
oh yeah,
Might be a
I think
minority
so.
opinion, but I don't think it changes things as much.
It,
Because I know if I was doing my job and someone was like, "You're not doing your job," I would probably not be like, "Well, actually, I'm the one in charge here." But you're right. Why don't I just hand you a couple more power plays? You know, I could
I
totally see how the second most penalized team in the league is suddenly not getting as many penalties in the postseason. That you're right. I didn't check that math. Come on, what do you think
yeah,
they're
but
actually affecting?
but come on. I mean, the postseason in my mind and growing up was always there was that different threshold for penalties,
Hmm.
right? Here's the threshold for regular season, and here it is for playoffs, right? You've got a cross check in the regular season is almost never a cross check in the playoffs, or it
Right,
shouldn't be.
right,
It almost has to be egregious or take away a clear scoring chance to be called a penalty.
yeah,
Because if you have a lethal power play and you're given enough power plays, that should help you win that game.
hmm
Unfortunately, the Bruins don't have a lethal power play,
no, they do not.
but you maybe will lose a game because of the refs, and I think you could argue the Bennett Coyle, goaltender, but wasn't that still like a one goal game? I mean, the
Yeah,
Bruins still could have won that game if they would have actually fucking shot the puck.
they could have.
So you're never going to lose a game or a series because of the refs.
No,
It's not going to happen. You
no.
can lose 3 games. All you have to do is win 4. It's never the ref's fault. Maybe that moment, that instant, it's the ref, and as fans, we get frustrated, but mostly because we can't fucking do anything about it. We can't yell at the
Oh
refs like
no.
the players can. We can't do anything. So we're
Hmm.
kind of at the mercy. So we feel better by, blaming the refs and doing all of this and that. But at the end, it's the players
Yep.
out there that win or lose the game, and the refs are there. And hockey is so fucking fast. These guys are skating 20, 30 miles an hour,
Yeah.
and the refs have this field of vision where it's so specific. They're looking at one thing where the guy to the left of him might, fucking start punching a guy in the face and no one sees it.
Hmm.
So you could see it on camera clear as day, but if you can't see it from the ref's point of view, you're not going to fucking call a penalty.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think the Bruins, they always take the high road, and I
Yeah.
think that is something they should be almost commended on. And the problem is, I don't think anybody ever does. Is they always get blamed for being these like whiny little bitches, where it's the Bruins actually are a respectable team and they
Yeah.
go about it in the right way, and
100%.
it's it's frustrating.
It's
So
frustrating for those of us that watch 82 games a year, you know,
true,
and go, yeah.
true.
But I mean, again, it's like they're not a whiny team, and
Right?
I like
No, they
them
don't
more
whine.
for it. I like them
Nah.
more for it. To
Yep.
that
Yep.
end, how I watching that handshake line, and watching Marchand out on the ice for the last game, and watching him shake Bennett's hand, um, I was like, that's our captain, you know. And
Yep.
so, how do you grade Marchand's first year owning this team and being the captain? Because
I
I feel
think
like after this postseason, it's his. Him getting knocked out and him coming back and him handling himself in the wake of that, it's his team. So, how do you feel he did?
you know what? I thought he did about as well as could be expected.
Mhm.
He just turned 36. He's got 1 more year left on his contract.
Yep.
I think at the presser, Don said he wants to make Marchand a Bruin for life, which
Yep.
isn't all that hard
No, I
to.
don't think it is. I
I
liked the
mean,
way he
what?
was like, "And then we'll extend him." I mean, anyway, yeah, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
he's
What do you
trying to
got?
move on
Two,
real quick.
two more good, solid years out of Marchand? Yeah.
That's
I
a
mean,
good
come
thing.
on. Of
Yeah.
course.
He'll skate till his
I
next hip replacement.
Yeah, I think so. But Brad Marchand is probably one of my favorite Bruins of all time,
Mhm.
and I think he did. I don't think he ever lost the team, which is
Mhm.
about what you could look for on a first-time captain, going from Chara and going from Bergeron, which has been captains for 20, 25 years, or feels like it.
I feel like I
I
want to say
mean,
years. I think Chara started in 06. So yeah,
right.
18 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel, and didn't I think it was Cam or Don who kind of alluded to it, where Marchand was trying to do a little bit too much early on in the year when it came to the captaincy and slowly grew into it. And I think you could kind of see that on the ice, where maybe he got a little bit more comfortable and was trying to do too much,
Yeah.
and he was getting inside of his head. But I thought the team always played hard. They never took any stupid penalties. They never did a whole lot of stupid mistakes for a long period of time, for a long stretch of the season. I mean, they almost won the President's Trophy. I mean, they were down there in the last month of the year.
Mm-hmm.
What else could you ask for? So I think Marchand did as good a job on the ice. I don't know so much off the ice. I would assume he was, doing whatever the captain needs to do.
Yeah.
Probably not as good as Bergeron and Chara, but on the ice as a leader, I think he did a great job. What do you think?
I 100%. I think it's one thing if you get the job because someone you kind of work with leaves and you're promoted. It's another thing when you get the
True.
job because your best friend retires. And up until the time they hand it to you, you're like, I don't want this.
And you're like the only guy there that's been long enough to
I
actually do
know,
the job.
but it's you. But it's like it's him. It's him. How am I
Yeah,
supposed to
right.
come in and do what that guy did?
Right.
And I and even down to that. I mean, I think like one of the photos of the year was that shot of Bergeron and him sitting at the table, where
Yeah.
it clearly looked like he was returning a sewing machine to somebody. He was like, "I got to bring
It
this back."
was.
Somebody brought,
It
yeah.
was. They were
But
in the sewing department of the Bruins locker room.
exactly. I've had this long enough. I got to bring this back.
Yep.
But I coming down the stretch, I liked how he was able to slap a stick on the ice and get people to snap to attention. I like how he set the tone for intensity.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how when he was out, you got Swayman, who is just such a, I mean, as nutty as he is, because he's a goalie, he's such a sentimental teddy bear when you ask him about anybody he plays with. But he's like the jersey's over there and it's not coming down until he comes back. That's telling. But I think the most telling thing is, and maybe it's a line, maybe it isn't. The guy's been around long enough to know what you got to say to the press when you're a new guy. But for Pat Maroon to sit there and go, "I love my captain," and it's like, well, you've known him for about 2 weeks, so you either really made a good impression, or you know what to say. But either way, I don't feel like Pat Maroon's a guy that stands on bullshit a lot. So for him to come into that locker room, into that culture, and go, all right, I see what you do here, and I'm on board with it, and however I can support you,
Yep.
there it is.
Didn't Pat?
I think for Marchand to come back, if he decided to take the stance that Bennett's a piece of shit and someone should go after him, he would be well within his rights to do that. But he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did he not do it, he goes, I understand why he did it. And frankly, we're all kind of trying to do that anyway. So like, whatever. I'm not happy it happened, but like, what are we going to do? We move on.
Yeah.
Holy cow. 2011, Brad Marchand would not have said that.
Fuck no. He would have been a Pavel Bure flying elbow from halfway across the ice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
His stick would have been a helicopter blade, and he would have just been coming in hot. And
we would have loved it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm fine with either one, honestly. But like, I like where he's landed, and I feel
he's
like
matured so much.
He has.
It's beyond belief.
He is this team's Dustin Pedroia.
Yeah.
He had to work twice as hard to be taken half as seriously for the first third of his career. And
true.
He has turned into someone that, love him or hate him. I mean, Pedroia wasn't up to his antics, but I'm talking sheerly on size versus output. He is overachieved what anyone would have expected from him on the ice, but mentally and in the locker room, I feel like it's the same thing.
Yeah. And didn't Maroon say this has been like his favorite team to play for in like his entire career?
I mean,
which is
I'm of two minds there. When you
fucking
look at, like,
awesome.
if you look at the Blues, the Wild, and the Lightning, you almost want to believe it. But also, he's a new guy, and he's like, I don't want to retire. Hopefully, these guys will resign me. But again, he's a guy that doesn't seem like he needs to stand on bullshit.
I don't. He's not that guy that wants to market himself to Don Sweeney, right?
No.
Like he's just, yeah. Do
One
you
more
want?
year, you think? We're in agreement, right? One more
I,
year.
I 1 year, 1 mil. I want
Yeah.
Rig.
All right. I would have even gone league minimum, but yeah, sure. Like 1 year,
Yeah.
1 mil, fine. Dude, give him the
Yeah.
Lucic deal. He will have been more effective than Lucic, I think.
Right. Well, he wanted to say he wants to mentor the young kids.
Yep.
I think I saw a picture of him and Patra, like at a Celtics game or something, maybe, like with his arm around him.
Holy shit, Uncle Pat! Look at him. I love it.
Right. I think Maroon could help Braz if they keep him work the boards and the front of the net. I think he can help Beecher with whatever the Bruins don't appreciate from him. I think Rig could actually help with that.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have to play him that much in the regular season to be effective.
No.
Let him play 50 games, 60 games, and then the playoffs. But I forget who said it, but they said when Maroon was out on the ice, there didn't seem to be that much of the Panthers trying to fuck with the Bruins. And that amongst itself was Maroon still being an effective enforcer.
Yeah.
You don't have to drop the gloves to be an enforcer, where you just have to give your players that space. And I think that's going to be key if Patra plays, or if Lysell makes that jump at some point. You need a guy like Lucic who will probably never play again. You need that guy like Maroon who's going to answer the bell and just be that enforcer, that guy on the ice that's just like, you touch any of my kids, I'm going to fucking kick the shit out of you.
Agreed.
So, and you know what? I think we've all kind of respected him. Maybe not liked him, but respected him. And now that he's on your team, I fucking love the guy.
Yeah.
Give me more of Rig, please.
I have only ever looked at Maroon as a slow-moving wrecking ball that was able to take 5 punches for the one he's going to drop you with. Right?
And he never played dirty. That's the nice thing. You're not like Rempe or something. Like he wasn't a dirty guy.
Yeah, and it's perfectly fine that he's slow or whatever. And the thing with Jack Edwards, but like, here's what's funny watching him actually play for you. I only saw him make maybe one play that was questionable that didn't go the way he wanted, but he's really good at hitting the boards and chipping it forward. That's what he did every single time. He put the puck where it needed to be for someone else to do something with it. Now, whether or not they did something with it is an entirely different argument. But I never really thought of Maroon as a guy with like hockey sense to be like, I will be here and I will put the puck there, and no one is going to take me off the puck. And if by some weird fluke, I'm going to be the first guy in the zone, which should never happen, but here I am. I'm going to go into the corner, and God damn it, 3 people will try to move me, and I will have the ability to basically look around for somebody to be like, hey, you look over and get this thing for me? There's value for that. I'd say give that guy a million. I feel like it's a wasted opportunity to let that guy walk.
Unless he can't ever play again. Right? Unless he can't ever play again, right? Like if his back is too fucked up.
Yeah.
But then you sign him like a McQuaid, right? You sign him as player development.
Yeah.
Like you said, he doesn't have to be the first forward on the puck.
No.
Let Boquist do that. Let Beecher do that. Let Lauko do that. Then let Rig come in and, be that big fat guy that comes in and just takes the puck and, does a little bit of thing with it and put it in front of the net and get a goal. I don't know. Shit'll work.
Why not?
So, all right, I got to run.
I know you got to go, but I got one last quick question.
All right, what do you got?
That you should be able to blast through really quick. So, like, why doesn't Frederick have a letter? Because the Boston Press seems to think he needs one.
You mean a pink slip?
Oh, I see. No, one of those. A.
For ass? No.
Why? All right. So, Frederick.
We need 45 minutes.
But somehow the press feels like you should be a leader and you should get an A.
So you're referring to the
Mhm.
locker room raw
I am.
where the media asked Frederick, I forget what it was, but you've been here long enough.
Yep. You don't have a letter, but do you
You,
feel like you got a voice?
and
And leadership.
Frederick's response, in my opinion, was basically, I haven't been here long enough, or I don't feel like I have that voice, right? Like he wasn't very sure of himself. And anybody that's in our Discord knows I am not the shit. How would you say it? I'm not the biggest I'm not a Frederick fan for a multitude of reasons. I think at best he is a fourth line center. There was one person that said he was going to score 20 goals this year. I said no, I win. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Was that me?
No, that wasn't you. That was someone else. That was
Okay.
two people that shall not be named.
All right.
Uh,
In the discussion of 20, I thought it was either Heinen or Frederick, but not both. I think that was my stance.
no, it was something else.
Okay.
I I want to like Frederick.
Mm-hmm.
He was, if I recall correctly, a first round draft pick in the 20s, I think. He shows speed every once in a while. There was that goal that he went down the boards and crashed the net. I forget what it was. I want to like him. I just don't see enough from him consistently.
Mm-hmm.
People like to call DeBrusque an inconsistent player. I think Frederick is a much more inconsistent player when it comes to compete and just kind of his motor. He doesn't do anything great. He doesn't do anything good.
Uh-huh.
Or I guess, what? Good, excellent, great. I don't know. He's just always there. And we've got too many guys that are at that same level, right? Geeky has that motor. Geeky has that speed that's there, that forecheck. Heinen, I've gained a ton of respect for.
100%.
He's
Yeah.
got he's got a decent hockey IQ. He's great defensively. He's decent on the penalty kill. You've got all those guys that are like the same level. And I just think Freddie dips below just
Mm-hmm.
because he's so inconsistent. And I don't think he's that well respected in the locker room, not like a Carlo is. I
Yeah.
was low on Carlo, but Carlo is loved in that locker room. And I don't think Freddie, I mean, he even said he doesn't have that voice in the locker room, right? If I
Mm-hmm.
took that away, and he's been a Bruin for 4 or 5 years now,
Yeah.
right? Like he should have that. I mean, not an alternate captain, but he should be able to assume he can step up and say things and mentor kids or do something. It's just
Yeah.
it's I I personally would love to see him as trade fodder. Him
Mm.
and Allmark. I I don't you're not going to win a Stanley Cup because of him. And those are the types of guys that I would dump in order to get someone like a Marchessault or whoever, or re-sign DeBrusque. I'd rather have DeBrusque over Freddie
Yeah.
any day of the
Agreed.
week. That's
Agreed.
how I view it. So it's just, I mean, we've got a couple of minutes. What do you think about Freddie? What
I
are your thoughts
kind of
going
agree
in?
with you. I like him. I will say that I don't hate him. And I think that I'm most of
That's
my
where we differ.
I think that most of my defense of Frederick comes from the fact that it's basically me being like, well, I don't hate him, you know,
Eh,
but he's a perfectly fine player. But I don't really understand why there are players on this team that the fan base and the media seem to show an infinite amount of patience for. And then you look at somebody, I think DeBrusque is a perfect comparison there for people to be like,
Yep.
oh no, get him out of here. He just wants the money or whatever. And it's like, listen, DeBrusque is everywhere. And if he's not scoring, he's damn sure doing something else. If Frederick
Right.
is not scoring or not trying to fight somebody, like I don't know what he's
Didn't
doing.
even really
But
fight
I'm
that
fine
well.
with
Yeah.
him being there. With the issue that I have, and I didn't think I actually saw your point until I saw that locker room raw too, where
Mhm.
I think everyone expects big things from him. Fine. You got people that watch this game day in, day out. They look at Frederick and go, there's something there. I will afford them their opinions. But if the media ever comes in and goes, well, you don't have a letter, but Freddie, what do you think? It's like, dude, I am not asking Frederick what his opinion is of anything. And if he decides, if it goes down the line of like Sway or Omar or McAvoy or Marchand or Pasta all doing their locker room hype speak, I am not being like, well, hold on, guys. Frederick, what do you think? Like, no, I'm not going to Frederick after that.
Right.
And maybe he won the 7th player award. He stole it from Heinen, but like that basically makes you internet rich, which we all know that means nothing. So I'm fine if he wants to get in there and grind it out and continue to develop it as a player. But I have an issue, and this is where I agree with you. I have an issue with this narrative that he is some sort of diamond in the raw. I haven't seen that. I've seen other players on the team that are younger than him that show more potential, but I like his effort. I think he tries as hard as he can, and I respect him for that. But you're right. I would lean to DeBrusk for leadership more than I would lean for Frederick, and I don't understand why he likes Trent and they don't like Jake, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
He's not a good hitter. Like McAvoy is the type of guy that will make the big splashy hit, which you need. But then if you watch Heinen, he is the more effective hitter.
Yep.
Right. Where growing up as a hockey player, we were always taught, don't hit the body, hit the boards in front of the player. So you take away the stick and the gloves. And you can kind of see Heinen trying to do that, because if you hit the body, you're going to bounce off him. Nothing's going to happen. And to me, that's what Freddie tries to do, where he'll go in for hits, but he'll stop before he hits the guy. Like he doesn't go through him. And if we ever do any of these again, I'll bring PowerPoints and YouTube video.
You'd bring
I will. It will be a much.
This was a last minute thing. Yeah, you're on notice. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I get frustrated watching Freddie because he's ineffective on the ice. There's never like a turnover or a bad play that goes in the Bruins' favor because of something Freddie did. Maybe every once in a while there might be something, but I see DeBrusk's speed as an asset, right? I see Lauko's tenacity as an asset. I was a huge fan of Oscar Steen, who may or may not be back, as an asset.
I was going to bring up Steen, but I knew we were running out of time. But
well, we could do 45 minutes of Oscar. I don't know if he's going to be back, but the next whatever team he is on will be my number 2 team, even if it's. We'll talk about it. But I don't see Freddie's role with the Bruins. I don't see it. I don't know where he fits. He's not great with Coyle anymore, because Coyle is kind of his own player. Like Coyle can kind of play. I mean, Coyle is Coyle, right? Like I think a couple of years ago, Coyle and Freddie were the big tandem. But then this year, Coyle was still just as good, just as effective without Freddie. So it wasn't Freddie who was making Coyle good.
Right.
It's just
Coyle is dragging himself along.
I think so.
Freddie is not, I guess. Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, he still got a bunch of points, but he got those points early in the year. And then I'd have to look at the stats, but I think the last half of the season, he didn't score all that much. I mean, he's got 5 points in 22 career playoff games. That's not great.
Coyle or Freddie?
Freddie.
Yeah.
And guess when those 5 points came? This playoff season.
Yeah.
So before that, he had, I don't know, I'm shit at math, 9 games, no points. Ooh, not so great. So, all right. Well,
that was a great assessment. It leads to many other lines of discussion, which we don't have time for. But I know we got to go, and
we'll save it.
I successfully kept you way past when you wanted to be out. But this was a lot of fun.
It was good.
Hopefully
we'll see how many people actually watch. We'll see if I can actually create the recording properly.
This is fantastic. I can do like 10 minutes, be like, dude, I deleted all of it. But even if no one ever hears this but you and me, this was a lot of fun.
It's fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, Adrian. You have a good one, man. We'll
You
talk to
too.
you.
Have a good night.
All right. Bye, Mr. Viewer or Mrs. Viewer, whoever the fuck watches this.
All right.
All right. Later, man.
Bye bye.